If you're in the market for a wireless meat thermometer, this is the video for you because I'm going to be comparing 3 of the most popular wireless meat thermometers on the market. So without further ado, let's get right into this. So the 3 wireless meat thermometers I'm going to be comparing today are the TempSpike, the MeatStick, and the ever so popular MEATER Plus. Now, I have a bunch of wireless meat thermometers, so I have used them. I can tell you all the inside and outs of all these meat thermometers. Now, before we get started, I just want to give you a little disclaimer about wireless meat thermometers. They all have their fair share of issues. Each one of them is going to have connectivity issues every now and then. It doesn't matter which brand you buy, they are all going to have some sort of connectivity issue at some point for you. But for the most part, they're fine. Another thing about these wireless meat thermometers is the distance that they state is not really accurate unless you are outside with nothing in the way or no obstructions between you and the booster bases. Most likely it's not going to be anywhere near the distance that they state because it's going to be going through all sorts of different things. So just keep that in mind when you're buying a wireless meat thermometer. And like I said, they all have these issues. It's not just one brand or the other. Now, another thing that I've noticed with these wireless meat thermometers, and again, it's across the board with every brand, and we'll probably see it today with testing, is the ambient temperatures are usually a little bit lower than what the actual ambient temperature is. And what I believe the reason for that is this part of the probe is going into the meat. Here's your ambient temp here. So what I believe is a lot of the temperature from the meat is getting drawn into the ambient temperature probe, making it read a little bit lower than it actually is. Because I've noticed once the meat gets hotter, the ambient temp becomes more accurate. And that's because the cold meat is not drawing that temperature down from that ambient probe. Now, before we go and test these, I'm gonna give you a little info on each one of these, and we will start with the MEATER Plus. So I'm sure you've seen these around. You see it's got this nice bamboo holster here, nice sleek design on the probe. You can see here though how this tip is kind of blunt. That's one thing I don't really like about the MEATER Plus. So these wireless meat thermometers go for $100 online. That's pretty much how they've been. Occasionally there will be sales that you'll find, but for the most part, this is a $100 wireless meat thermometer. This was probably one of the first ones out on the market. It's definitely the first one I saw out on the market, and I think that's why these are so popular, just because they were the first ones out. So the range on these MEATER Plus is stated at 165 feet, and like I mentioned earlier, it's not going to be nearly as close to that. So the max internal temperature for the probe is 212 degrees. That's as high as it will read for internal temperature. And for your ambient temperature, the most it will read is 527 degrees on the MEATER Plus. Now, this uses batteries. If you pull the cover off here, it uses one AAA battery, which is kind of nice. One small battery keeps this going for quite some time. Now, moving on to the MeatStick. See, it has a plastic case here. The ambient probe area is a little bigger than the MEATER, but what you'll notice here at the tip, you see how it's not as blunt. This is nice for inserting into meat, makes it a little bit easier. Now, these go for the same $100 price as the MEATER Plus, but you can also get these on sale for around $80 when there's deals. So the internal temperature range of this probe is 32 degrees to 212 degrees. And the ambient temp is 572 degrees max reading. It has a 260 foot range on this. And again, not gonna be 260, but it is longer than the MEATER Plus. And once this probe is charged, it will last for 24 hours. And again, this one runs off batteries, 2 AA batteries. All right, now before we go on, I'd like to mention that there is this MeatStick 4X temperature probe. You can see it looks very similar to the original MeatStick I have here. Now, the difference between this is it has 3 internal temperature probes, which allows it to get a more accurate reading. It also has a 650 foot range on this thing, and this probe has 70 hours of cook time. Now, this goes for $125 compared to $100 on the original MeatStick. So if you're looking for something a little more higher end than this original MeatStick, the MeatStick 4X is fantastic, and I highly recommend this one as well. But today, we're just gonna be testing out with the original MeatStick. I just wanna go ahead and show you this one. Now, the last one is the TempSpike by Thermopro. This is a very nice wireless meat thermometer. Nice rugged case here with a cover. pull that off. You can see the probe is similar to the MeatStick, and it also has that blunt style end of the meter. Now this is a rechargeable battery in here. You can see this is where you go ahead and plug your charger in. So the nice thing about this is you don't need batteries. You can just plug it in and recharge it. The problem with this is if you forget to charge it, you go to use it and you need it, then you're gonna have an issue because it's dead, where if the other ones are dead, you can just throw in some new batteries and you're good to go. Now the TempSpike goes for $80 online, but Thermopro always has these lightning deals for these, and you can pick these up for about 45 bucks, which is a fantastic deal on one of these. Now for this, they state it has a 500-foot range, and the max ambient temperature on this is 572 degrees, and internal temp is the same as the other ones, 212. Now on the Thermopro website, they do state that this is good up to 627 degrees, and they're not saying it will get damaged if you go over that temperature. They do say that there is more risk of damage if you do go over that 627 degree temperature, which the other two wireless thermometers don't mention anything like that. Now with a full charge, they tell you that this booster will last 3 months. And once the probe is charged, it will last 48 total hours. So that is the basic info on these wireless meat thermometers, but we're gonna need a cut of meat to put these in, get it out on the grill so we can give these a real test. So for this test, I'm going to be using one of my favorite cuts of meat, and it is one of the most underrated cuts of meat that you can barbecue. And what I'm talking about is a pork loin. This is one of my favorite cuts of meat to cook on the barbecue. It is super easy, comes out absolutely delicious, and super cheap. Now I bought a full pork loin. It was about this big. It cost me 28 bucks. You probably could get 4 of these roast out of it. So if you do the math, you're at about 7 bucks for this roast, and you could probably get 5 out of that whole thing anyway. For 7 bucks for this whole roast, you can't even get a nice ribeye for that price. You get a ton of meat, and it is so delicious if cooked properly. Now, recently the government came out and said it is okay to cook pork to 145 degrees, and that was long overdue. If you've been cooking your pork to 160 degrees, I'm sure you've had plenty of dry pork chops and pork loin roast. 145 degrees is a perfect temperature to cook a pork loin. It comes out super juicy, and like I said, one of the best barbecue items you can do. That's why it's so important to have a good wireless meat thermometer that is accurate, because you want to pull this off at exactly 145 degrees to make sure you have a delicious cut of pork. But let's go ahead and get the season so we can get those temperature probes in. So today I'm going to be using my barbecue seasoning. If you want to learn how to make this barbecue seasoning, I have a seasoning video where I show you how to make this along with 3 other fantastic seasoning recipes. I'll put a link down in the description below if you're interested in that video. Be sure to check it out. So all I did to this pork loin roast, as you can see, is I just went ahead and scored this fat cap on top here. I always like doing that with pork. It really helps render that fat cap out. And there's usually some silver skin under there. So if you cut the silver skin like that, it helps kind of render that down as well and make it less chewy. So I'm just gonna go on with a generous amount of this barbecue seasoning. Make sure to get the whole thing covered. I'm super excited about this cook. So like I said, I love a good pork loin roast. So easy, so tasty. And if you can get this fat cap crispy, it is so delicious. Now I like to just kind of work that seasoning into all those cuts. And we're just gonna roll this on the board, make sure we get all our seasoning, and there we go. Beautiful pork loin roast, seasoned to perfection. So one thing I might do with a pork loin roast is go ahead and get some butcher's twine and kind of truss it up to keep it in a nice round shape. This will help make sure it cooks evenly, but this is a pretty nice roast. I cut this right out of the middle of that pork loin roast. So this is all set, ready for the smoker, but we gotta get our temperature probes in there because that's what this is all about. So we're going to start off with our TempSpike first. And if you notice on these thermometers, there's a line there. They want you to get the meat to at least that line. You don't have to go all the way to the ambient temp probe, just to that line. So with this pork loin roast, that's the goal. Try and get them towards the center so we can have accurate temp readings. It's pretty good like that. Next up, the MEATER Plus. And again, you can see that little line on there. And then the MeatStick, and you can see the line on this is a little closer to the middle, but I'm gonna try and get this in as far as the other ones. So there we have it, all 3 of our temp probes in here. Tried to center them as best I could so we can have some accuracy here. So today I'm gonna be cooking this up on my kettle grill. I haven't done a pork loin roast on that, so I wanted to give it a shot. And I have a temperature gauge on my kettle grill, so that will give us a good test of the accuracy of these ambient temperature probes on here. But let's go ahead, get this outside and throw it on the grill. All right, so we are out at the kettle grill. This thing is at about 300 degrees. So we got 2 charcoal baskets on each side, and I threw a little bit of cherry wood in there to give this a little smoke. So I'm just gonna take this pork loin, we're gonna put it right in the middle of the grate here. So most likely I would like to do it like that, but I know we're gonna get some strange ambient readings like that. So I'm gonna keep it just like that. This way, when I get the lid on there, like so, we have our temperature probe on the same side as the ambient temp on those thermometers. So it'll give us a pretty accurate reading. But let's go ahead, let this thing smoke, and we will set up our meat thermometers. And I have all the charging bases right here. Let's see, not very far away from the grill. You want to keep them close. So got those there. Let's go ahead, get in, set them up. All right, so the pork loin roast is out on the grill. Let's go ahead and set these apps up, and we're gonna start with the meter. So you can see here, without anything set up, it's gonna give you an internal and an ambient temperature, and then it's gonna tell you no cook setup. Just go ahead and click that. And if you just wanna monitor temperatures, this is perfectly fine right here. You can see our internal's at 70 degrees right now. Ambient is at 286 degrees. So let's go ahead and set up cook by tapping here. We want pork. I'm gonna go with a roast and a loin roast. And here it's showing you 145 degrees. That is exactly where we want it. So go ahead and hit start cook. And then that is all that there is to it. It's gonna give you an elapsed time here. And if you click elapsed time, it's going to give you an estimated cooking time. Right now it's estimating that cooking time, so it takes a little bit before it gives you that. Even when it does give you that estimated cooking time, it's really not too accurate. But here you can see internal is now up to 72. We have a 145 degree target and 283 degree ambient temperature. Pretty simple for the meter. You can see it's got a nice layout and everything, and there are much more features you can do in here if you want. But let's go ahead and set up our MeatStick. So open up the MeatStick app. I've already gone ahead and connected all these probes, so those steps will not be included in here. If you want to see all those steps, I have 2 videos comparing the TempSpike to the meter and the MeatStick to the meter. Check out those videos. I go much more into detail about everything. But down here, we'll hit setup cook. We are going to call it a grill pork. You can see it's got these nice pictures here. We want a pork loin. It's telling us 145, so that's great. We can set a target internal and a target ambient, but right now we're not worried about ambient temperature, just the internal. So go ahead and hit next. Then it's gonna go ahead and create the cook. Now you're supposed to do this prior to putting the stick into the meat. I've gone ahead and put it in there first, but as you can see here, you want to set up your cook, then insert your probe. So here's the layout for the MeatStick, and you can see we're reading 64 degrees internal temperature on the MeatStick, 239 on ambient. So right now this is reading a little bit lower than our meter. And you can see here down at the bottom how it's showing 3 different temperatures on the probe. That's because I'm using the probe from my 4X thermometer because the one for my regular MeatStick wasn't charged enough, so not a big problem. But this is good because it's going to show you that feature for the 4X here. Very similar functions to the meter. The layout's a little different. You can see it has an elapsed time, and then underneath there it's remaining time. Again, it needs to be calculated to give you that. So let's move ahead to the TempSpike. So here is the TempSpike. Again, you can see these have all different apps. And you can see I have the twin TempSpike down here. I have one of these. They are a fantastic thermometer. I'm not showing it today, but if you're interested in a meat thermometer, definitely check out that twin TempSpike if you're looking for more than one probe. I have a video reviewing this. Be sure to check it out. I'll put a link in the description. So go ahead and click that thermometer up there. You can see we're reading 90 degrees internal. So this one's even hotter, and our ambient temp 264. That seems around where the meter was. Now to set up a cook on here, you want to go up to no profile. We're going to hit pork, And then medium says 160. We're gonna change this, but as you can see here on the TempSpike, they're not giving us 145 for pork. So what I wanna do is cancel that, and down at the bottom, you can see the little plus. Go ahead, hit that, and we're gonna name this as pork loin, and we want 145 degrees. And then save. And there we have it. That is all there is to it. You can see there is an estimated time left at the bottom. Again, it needs to be calculated. Also here at the bottom, you can control your alarms and stuff. And like I said, there are much more features to all these apps, and I go over them in detail in my other videos. So be sure to check those out if you're interested. But we can see here the TempSpike is reading 91 degrees with 262 ambient. Let's see what our meter is at now. Our meter is at 79 and 272, and the MeatStick is at 69 and 243. So our TempSpike is the hottest, which is on the outside of the pork loin, so it may actually be warmer there. So 95 degrees on that pork loin on the TempSpike. I think that's because we are further to the side of the pork loin, and I might have stuck it in a little further than I wanted to. But I will go out there, recheck the probe placement, maybe replace them, because when this gets closer to the finishing temp, we'll go out there with an instant read thermometer and really check the accuracy of all these probes. So for now, I'm gonna let this delicious pork loin cook, and I will see you when we are about 5 degrees away from this being finished. All right, we are back out at the grill. You can see here, 143 degrees, an hour and 13 minutes. This is on the meter. So let's go ahead, see what the other ones are. So the MeatStick is 143, and I reinserted the TempSpike, and you can see we're at 136 on that. But let's see how this pork loin is coming along. So you can see the pork loin roast right there. Absolutely gorgeous. You can see that fat cap got nice and crispy. But let's go ahead with the instant read thermometer, see what we got for a reading here. About 134 degrees on that. So it looks like the Thermopro is closer, but I'm going to pull these two thermometers out and reinsert them and see if I can get closer to the middle, see if that might be the issue. All right, so we are back. I'm gonna grab this MeatStick, see if maybe I can get it in a better spot. So now you can see we're down to 139, so it's more in the center now. Let's do the same thing with the meter. So I must have not got these in the center properly. So that's one thing you need to be careful of when you're using these meat thermometers. So it's always good to check with an instant read. Yeah, so now you can see we are down to 139, 138 and dropping. And that seems more right because when I stick my instant read in there, it's at about 136 right now. And as you can see here, 136 on the meter. Now, let's check the MeatStick, 138. Check the TempSpike, 140. So they're all pretty close reasonably, but my plan here is to let this get up to the 145 degree mark. Then I'm going to pull it off and rest it. So I will see you guys inside when this is all finished up. All right, you can see why I said pork loin is the most underrated cut in barbecue. This thing smells amazing. See how that fat crisped up very nicely here? Just check that out. Oh yeah. Does this thing not look fantastic or what? And you can see it is super juicy. That's because when you cook a pork loin to 145 degrees, it doesn't get all dried out. It stays nice and juicy. That's why I'm saying this is the most underrated cut of barbecue that there is. And I'll give you a little close up. Just check that out. Like I said, beautiful crust. Super juicy. But before I cut into this pork loin, let's talk about these wireless meat thermometers. So we got the Thermopro TempSpike, the MEATER Plus, and the MeatStick X. Now they all performed pretty evenly. As you can see out there, temperatures were very reasonably close. and I didn't have any connectivity issues, but I was not that far away from these bases. Now, like I said, I did that video with the MEATER Plus and the TempSpike, as well as one with the MeatStick and the MEATER Plus. Now, what I found in those is that the TempSpike and the MEATER Plus have about the exact same range, but the MeatStick has a little bit longer range than the MEATER Plus. So that being said, the MeatStick and the MEATER Plus are the exact same price. So if you're gonna pick one of those, definitely go with the MeatStick. The other thing I like about it is this more pointed probe. That is a lot nicer to stick into a raw piece of meat than that blunt end on the MEATER Plus. Now, since the TempSpike and the MEATER Plus have the same range, I would definitely go with the TempSpike because it is so much cheaper. You can buy it for 80 bucks, but there are lightning deals all the time and they go on sale for around $50 to $45. Make sure to follow the YouTube community, my Instagram and Facebook. When there's those deals out there, I'll try and post them so you guys can get one of those great deals on this TempSpike. Because for $45, it really is a great deal. Now, like I said, there is the MeatStick 4X, which is a little bit more money. And I was using that probe so you can see the 4 different temperature sensors. It's a pretty nice feature. The range is very similar. It's not much better. Now, Thermopro has another wireless meat thermometer right here. This is the twin TempSpike. This is a fantastic wireless meat thermometer. I did a review video on this. Like I said, I'll put it down in the description below. This is nice because you get 2 temperature probes and this base will tell you the temperature readouts right here. So if something was going on with your app, you can still read what's going on with your temperature probes, which that is a fantastic feature. I believe this is around the $100 mark. If it's not, you can probably get it for that price when it goes on sale. You might even be able to get one of these for $90. So for that price, this is a fantastic deal. Now, another thing I want to mention about the MeatStick, like I said, I'm using their X thermometer, but I was using the 4X probe. So that 4X is really nice because you get a little bit more accurate reading on your temperatures. But a great product from the MeatStick is this Mini X. You can see how small this probe is here. That is very nice because it makes it easier to put into a smaller piece of meat, kind of like we had with this pork loin here. It gives you less of a chance of putting it in the wrong spot and getting an incorrect reading, kind of like what was going on here. Now, the problem with the Mini X is you don't get an ambient temperature reading when you have this, but that's where the new MeatStick Chef X comes into play. I use this to cook a brisket. I'll put that video down below as well. This is the same size as the Mini X, but you get an ambient temp readout. So this is a really nice thermometer. If money's really not your issue and you're looking for a really nice thermometer, I suggest this one because of the small size. Still has a nice point for inserting into the meat, and you get ambient and internal readings. But if you're looking for something more on the cheap side, I would go with one of the Thermopro, either the twin TempSpike, which is great deal for what you're getting, or one of these for when they go on sale for 50 bucks. You really can't beat that. Now, I have a ton of meat thermometers, as you can see, so I want to be honest and let you know what I think the best bang for your buck is with all these. And like I said, I love that Chef X because of that size. I believe it is around $125, and I would suggest buying that over the MeatStick 4X just because of the size. That's pretty great feature there with that one. Now, if you want to save some money, I would go with that twin TempSpike. That is a great deal. You get 2 thermometers plus the readout on the screen. Really nice. Now, I'm going to put links for all this stuff down below, and if you use those links, it would be great because I get a little bit back from that and it really helps support the channel. But enough of these meat thermometers. Let's go ahead, slice up this pork loin, see how this thing came out. All right, so I'm gonna slice this right down the middle. Oh yeah, check it out. Nice and juicy, super tender. Let me get a slice off this so I can give it a try. Just gonna go with a thin slice there. Oh yeah. That's the other thing about this pork loin roast. You can get a nice thin slice. You can put this on a sandwich. You can do some fantastic things with this. Again, most underrated cut in barbecue. Nice and tender there. You can see pulls right apart. See how this thing came out. It's ridiculously juicy. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. And I'm gonna put the MeatStick versus MEATER over here and the TempSpike versus MEATER right over here. So if you wanna see more detailed videos on each of these thermometers, be sure to check out both these videos. And again, all the other videos I mentioned, I'm gonna put them right down in the description. But most importantly, get out there and smoke something good.